Latia S. Brock here, and this is Abundant Living Talk Show. And I'm so excited. You guys may have tuned in last week when I had Sam Black on, and you heard the topic and the guest, the guest today, Tammy Thompson. I'm so happy to have her here with me. We are going to get into the blessing of being resourceful. So, let me welcome my guest. Welcome.
Hi,
Tammy. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you for inviting me. This is exciting.
Yes. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Well, I always ask our guests to let the viewers know who they are and what they do. So I'm not going to read your whole bio, but just we're sitting down, we're buckled for the ride, so tell us who you are.
Well, that's a loaded question. Since honestly, I'm still figuring it out.
Yes.
But one of the main things that I am, besides being a mother and a grandmother, is a person who enjoys educating people about poverty, educating people about what poverty is not.
Yes.
And educating people about how to get out of poverty, right? So probably at the core of everything I do is the subject of poverty, which obviously comes from some of my own experiences and the things that I know I needed when I was struggling and at my worst and in my darkest times. I didn't feel like I had a lot of support.
Mm-hmm.
I felt very isolated in poverty, and I feel like I was in poverty a lot longer than I needed to be because I was trying to do everything on my own.
Yes.
And so now, as the executive director of a nonprofit whose total mission is about helping people escape poverty, I use that platform to not only educate people who should know already what poverty is, since it tends to be folks who are getting paid to create programming and allocate funding sources towards anti-poverty programming. I find myself educating those folks a lot about what poverty is not. Over the last 10 years or so, more recently over the last 3 or 4 years, I've put a lot of focus into trying to reduce the negative narrative around poverty and reducing the stigma and the shame associated with poverty that I believe is a contributing factor for people staying in it longer, because people are ashamed to ask for help in a lot of cases for fear of judgment, and people getting lumped all into one bucket, like, anybody who's in poverty is all there for the same reasons. And so I think it's really important for people to change their thought process around poverty. Because this negative narrative, these false narratives, the stigma and the shame is actually going into a lot of the programming that is supposed to be helping people get out. People are bringing their own implicit biases and their own, feelings about why people are in poverty into this work, and it's adding insult to injury for a lot of people. And I feel like it is imperative for me to do what I can to change that narrative and to tell people the truth about the folks that I know who are working very hard to escape poverty and deserve more than what society is giving them.
Definitely, and it's great of you to use your platform and your influence at this point to bless other people and give them a hand up. I always say that everyone needs a helping hand.
That's right.
And like you said, a lot of people just might not know how to get to that next step. So what you're doing is definitely amazing. So we already kind of discussed about the need that you notice within the community. So I want to talk about, we have so much stuff to talk about, you guys, within our segment, but T3 Media, T3 Consulting, and Thompson Real Estate Consulting. So can we talk about those?
Yeah, so my T3 Consulting actually was birthed out of Thompson Real Estate Consulting. So the business started as Thompson Real Estate Consulting back in 2008. Back then, I was 100% focused on real estate and the real estate transaction, and I was a closing agent and helping people primarily with real estate transactions, first-time home buyers as well as investors. And I love real estate, right? I love all things real estate. But over time, that morphed into me being a lot more interested in why there were so many folks that look like us who were missing the opportunity of home ownership. And, really was doing a lot of self-assessments in my own situation and realized that, our experiences, our past experiences, particularly if you have a background and you were born into generational poverty, because believe it or not, these two things go together, right? So when we think about, if you look at the statistics of home ownership, African Americans are so behind in ownership and asset building. And again, the negative narrative is that, well, we just didn't do enough to become homeowners. And that's not necessarily true. There were a lot of policies and systems in place that kept African Americans out of home ownership for generations.
Yes.
And so now we're at this point where we're trying to catch up. And so the business sort of morphed more into first-time homebuyer education. I was more interested in how do we get low-income families, low to moderate income families, people of color, single moms, into home ownership. What do we need to do? And realized a lot of that was going to be connected to teaching other nonprofits how to address poverty in low-income neighborhoods, low-income African-American neighborhoods with very high concentrations of single mothers. And realize that work has to be done differently when you're working with us.
Yes.
Right? Because we have so much trauma associated with long-term exposure to poverty and all of the experiences that come with that. You can't skip that and go into home ownership training. You can't skip the trauma and start talking to people about budgeting, savings, credit, settlement sheets and understanding market values. You can't do that. And so I turned the business is now Thompson Real Estate Consulting, doing business as T3 Consulting, because to me it's about more than the real estate.
Yeah, it goes deeper, like you said.
Yeah.
And it's, as a single mommy, I was a single mommy first at 17.
Me too.
So having a baby in this world, I knew I didn't want to live so much in the projects, but the low income housing that was provided. And then it was like, hey, come to this workshop, you can buy a home. I'm like, I have no money.
Exactly.
How am I going to buy a home when I just had a baby?
Right.
Got my first credit card because that's what they said to do. At 18, get a credit card.
But you weren't prepared.
Wasn't prepared for a credit card. Didn't know that if you only paid half of the bill, you still owed that other half and the new charges. So there's a lot, like you said, the education piece that goes into it that we're not always taught.
Right.
So I love that, and I want to connect with you more after the show, definitely for that, because we do need it. There's a lot of young mothers who are not educated.
And we need it in the right way, right? There has to be a healthy balance between helping people heal from their trauma, so that they are prepared to receive opportunity. Because if you're not healed, if you're not at least on the path to healing, you don't recognize these things as opportunity, right? You'll always think that they're for other people. That stuff is for them. When you see new homes being built, you don't recognize that as something for you.
The homes in Homewood.
Yes, right. It's everywhere though. So it's when people don't feel like they are going to have the opportunity to take advantage of new development and new homes being built, they automatically believe that they should be in fear for their own security because they don't recognize these as opportunities for them. And I'm trying to change that, right? Anything that happens in this city is mine too, right? We need to have that mindset that if it comes up and it's being built in my neighborhood, it also belongs to me.
That's ours.
That's ours,
it's
right?
Ours.
But we have to do our work to figure out how do we get there? How do we prepare ourselves to take advantage of these opportunities? And that is where I believe the balance between the technical understanding of financial stability and home ownership, that stuff is important, but you can't do that without working to heal people and creating supportive atmospheres for people to heal. So that is the work that I think is really, really important. Yeah,
because those opportunities can sometimes be intimidating.
Yes.
And overwhelming.
Absolutely.
When you're looking at a stack of bills, and then you're also looking at goals.
Yes.
Everybody has goals. When you definitely look on social media, that's a big thing. Hashtag goals.
Yeah.
but we need that middle piece.
Yeah, how do
so
you
we're
prepare
here.
yourself for
We're
the
here.
goals?
So how do we get to goals?
That's right. And I say it's one step at a time, right? It's one thing at a time. And, what we have to learn how to do is if we're starting here, we want to jump all the way from here to here. We don't want to do the work in the middle. And the work in the middle is where everything's happening, right? Work on self, work of increasing our knowledge around these things. You can't go from here to here, and skip the in between. So it's about patience. It's learning patience. It's learning that your time is your time, right? It's about building a tribe of people around you that are going to support you when you fall down, right? When you fall down, not if. Because when will happen. Yes. It's going to happen, but you got to learn how to get up, dust yourself off, and keep moving, on, right? Keep it moving, and that's what we have to do.
Definitely press. So we discussed, the type of services that you do offer. I want to get into all the work that you're doing.
I'm tired.
I'm tired for you.
I'm tired.
All the work that you're doing. I want to ask you the question that I ask everyone that comes and blesses the set. Who inspires you to do the work that you do?
People always expect me to say my mom or some famous person, and trust me, my mom is an inspiration. But the people that really inspire me are the people who fight through and just don't quit. And these are the women that I'm in contact with every single day. The women who show up, knowing all the stuff that's going on in the background, knowing, the kids and, the relationships and the money and, the stuff, but the people who just continue no matter what and just keep moving forward. That's what inspires me, right? I'm inspired by the overcomers.
Yes.
I'm inspired by people who have been through some stuff and continue to move forward. That's who I'm inspired by.
That's amazing. Yeah. I love that. Inspired by the overcomers.
Yeah.
So I want to talk. We do have her book that I'm going to purchase because I need it in my life. And it's The Spending Log. And it says one of the best ways to assess your finances is to pay very close attention to how much money you have coming in and how much is going out. So you guys know that we talk about frequently taking inventory.
Oh, yeah.
Self-inventory, but financial inventory is also important. So I urge you to purchase this book. And how can the viewers purchase the book?
They can go to my website, which is www.TammyThompson.com. Or they can go to Amazon and purchase it on Amazon. Or I usually have a whole box of them in my car at any given time. If you see me, you can flag me down and get a copy. But the book is important. So I've been doing this work for quite a long time. And this book was birthed out of my own experience, right? Could not figure out. So, this was back when I was working for another nonprofit. And my role was to help people create budgets and help them fix their credit, right? I get paid to help other people manage their money. That's what I get paid to do. But my own money was a mess. It was a mess. And it just was so odd to me. And I just couldn't understand, why can I not do for myself what I'm helping other people do? Yes. It just didn't make sense to me. And it was frustrating. And it was depressing. And I finally got to a place where it was like, okay, you got to figure this out. You got to analyze this. And I started really going back and thinking about my past and trying to address my trauma and realize that my poor spending habits were rooted in my trauma. And some very serious trauma, going days without food, having to move around so much when my mother was a single mom and trying to figure out living in Pittsburgh by herself. A lot of trauma, a lot of lack, a lot of things that we didn't have, and I was traumatized by it, particularly the food, the food insecurity thing. And when I started thinking back and making the connection between my trauma and my current decision making, so much of it was connected to things that had happened to me in the past. And when I started thinking about money from that perspective, it really came down to writing everything down and then trying to connect my decision to purchase that thing, and was it connected to a trauma, or did I really need it? And it worked. It worked because it made it so clear, right? Everything became so clear. Once you actually write it down and see it, you can't hide from it. And we are good at hiding from our spending habits.
Yes, we are.
And some of it is because we're busy, right? Some of it is just because we're busy and we're moving around, and you got to pick up the kids, you got to grab them something to eat, but most of it is that we are in denial. Right? We really don't know where our money is going. We have no idea. So, if you ever say things like, I don't understand, I just got paid, where's my money? What's going on? This is a way to stop that, right?
Definitely.
That spending log is a way to put everything on paper in the forefront, and you have no choice but to face it.
Like you said, it's in your face. I know that I gave myself a challenge last year. I said, I'm going to get a 5-subject notebook. I'm logging every receipt. It was so funny. One of my friends said, do you really write down every receipt every day?
Yeah.
I said, I need to know where my money's going.
That's right.
And I was I was guilty of that. And it wasn't so much that, I didn't have food growing up, but now that I can afford some of the things that I want, I find myself, exiting it out quickly. And I said, okay, wait a minute. Slow down. Because I was able to see, like you said, that pattern. And just take self-inventory. Like, I spend a lot of money.
That's right. And it's important.
Of money.
It's important to do this. So a lot of people will sit down and try to do a budget. Right? And they'll do the budget. And then at the end of the month, they're like, this doesn't work. This thing don't work. It's not that the budget doesn't work. It's that you were putting false numbers in the budget. This is the step before you sit down and try to do a budget. Because this does not lie. Right? If you put everything in there, the numbers never lie. You do it, you take inventory, then you use those numbers in your budget, and you have an accurate budget. And though you have to do, this is where I'm saying you can't jump from here to here. These are the steps that you have to take if you're really serious, if you're really ready to move forward to financial security.
And life has a way of putting us in the places I believe that we need to be. Last year we went to Myrtle Beach, and we met a whole bunch of people, met lawyers, and I met an accountant. And it was so funny because he said, I'm going to send you the spreadsheet. And he said, I want you to plug in everything. And I looked at that sheet and I said, oh my goodness. I said, this is going to be too much. He said, no, seriously. He said, down to what you spend on a thing of fries.
Everything.
And I thought that was so mind blowing because I said, you want my fries? He said, if you buy a pack of gum,
it has to go in there. It has to go in there. And that's important because where we really are wasting the majority of our money is not in our bills. Our bills are generally not the problem. Our bills stay the same.
Yes, they do.
Right? They very rarely change. And so what those expenses are. It's the stuff you don't pay attention to that is the culprit.
Yes.
It's the dollar store. It's the money we give the kids. It's the $3, $4, $5 here and there and everywhere that we're not paying attention to that adds up. So when I first did this for myself, my big problem was I didn't know it was a problem because it was, $3-4 here and there. It was coffee.
Oh.
I love coffee, right? And, so I work a lot. I work early mornings. I work late evenings most of the time. And I could find myself some days buying 3 cups of coffee a day. $4 a cup, 3 times a day. That's $12 a day times 6.
Yes,
that's a lot of money. It ended up being I was spending almost $200 a month just on coffee, not counting the eating out, not counting the dollar store, Family Dollar, the cleaning supplies, the hair supplies, the stuff that we just don't pay attention to. So you have to do it so that you can decide. And it's not saying that you change your entire life, but it's saying at least you know.
It's a choice.
And then you can make some decisions about where you need to cut back.
Definitely. Well, here's another loaded question. With so much going on, so much of 2019 left. People are like, we're almost done with 2019. No, there's so much left.
There's a lot left, but it's like
it's
November.
It's flying.
I like it's November.
Yeah, it's flying past. I'm like, oh my goodness. I'm past the summer.
Yeah. Already scheduling stuff for November.
Oh no, 2020.
Yeah.
So that calendar is over with so much of 2019 left. What's next for you?
Well, the spending log was very important for me to get done because I have been talking about this for years, right? And so we finally did that, which is awesome. I am working on my memoir. So I speak about it a lot. I get called to a lot of places to speak about what I call the psychology of poverty and, poverty trauma. But I need to write a book. There's a book inside of me that I have been trying to write for about 10 years.
Yes,
and it's a very important story. And the goal is to try to get it finished this year. So I don't know if Tiffany Huff is watching this. She's like, because she's been trying to get me to write this book. But that is the goal, is to get it finished this year. My day job, with Circles is so many amazing things are happening. We are releasing our first podcast episode on Monday, which I've never done a podcast before, but I produced it under T3 Media, which T3 Media, we intend to grow that. Believe it or not, we are talking about a talk show for next year.
Man.
And just want to continue to find creative ways to raise awareness around these really, really important topics, and people, giving people a platform to tell their own stories. T3 Media, we do social justice, we produce social justice documentaries, and we want to continue to tell stories about issues related to poverty and giving folks their own platforms to tell their own story, because you know what happens when you don't tell your own story. Somebody tells it for you and messes it all up, right?
Usually wrong.
So that's really important to me, is to continue to grow T3 Media and keep providing platforms for issues related to poverty and the folks who are working really hard to get out.
Definitely. And with all that you're doing and all of the wonderful companies and work, how can our viewers connect with you?
Well, they can connect with me via my website, www.tammythompson.com. I'm on social media as Halima Tammy Thompson. And those are really the best ways to get me. I'm old, so I'm slipping on Instagram. I know I need to get better, but I'm working on it. My website also has upcoming speaking events for anybody who's interested in coming to any of those. But I'm around.
I'm here. Yeah. Well, I thank you so much for being my guest.
Thank you for inviting me.
And giving me so much knowledge, and your book.
Thank you.
Purchase the book, you guys. I can't stress that enough. You want to know how you can be successful, how you can get to goals, doing the work in between, which is the book. Doing that work in between and taking inventory.
Yeah.
And you are actually my last guest on this set for our spring series. Yes. So we're taking a break for the month of June, but we will be back in July.
Yes, keep coming back.
Listen, with future guests and more people that are making a difference. And I thank you for giving us insight on the blessing of being resourceful.
Yes.
There's so much more we can go into. I'm going to get some nuggets and some jewels for myself. So I invite you, the viewers, to connect with Sister Tammy, as I call her, Tammy Thompson, and she'll be able to further help you figure out how to get out of that rut, how to get out of poverty, but how to deal with it.